Thank you for joining me for the Explorer project, part of the HANA Academy. In this project, we go from data in MySQL all the way to exploration with Business Objects Explorer. In this first video, we will create a destination schema in HANA. The way we're going to do this is we're going to use a Windows box, shown here on the left, to connect to a Linux box, shown here on the right, that hosts the in-memory HANA database. And we'll use the studio to connect to HANA and create this schema. But before we do that, Bob is going to show us how to verify that we have proper connectivity between the Windows box and the Linux box. With that, let's get started.
To do this, we need to launch the SAP HANA Studio. So let's go to Start, All Programs, SAP HANA, and I'm going to launch the SAP HANA Studio. So the first thing you'll see is what are called a perspective, and this perspective is the administrator perspective. In order to do the work for this tutorial, we need to select a different perspective. The way you select this perspective is very simple. On the top right hand side of the screen, you have an open perspective icon. If you select it and then click on Other, all we need to do here is select the modeler perspective and click on OK. So the screen will change slightly once you've done that. Now on this perspective there's a few windows that we don't actually need. So we can close the cheat sheets window on the top right hand side by clicking on the X next to cheat sheets. We can close the job log on the bottom right hand side, again clicking on the X next to job log. History we can close, progress we can close, and lastly we can close the properties window on the bottom part of the screen and the where used list on the bottom left hand side of the screen. To create the connection, all we need to do is go somewhere in our navigator panel, you can see on the left hand side, right click on the white space and select Add System. So the first thing we need to do is enter the system information of where the HANA server is on our Linux box. Our host name is HANA. So the Linux machine is called HANA, so I'm going to enter the word HANA. Obviously you could put the full DNS name, which would be hana.cloud.sab.corp, and just press return. Then you can tab to the instance number. Now with the instance number, you can have many instances or many versions of the database on the same system. So for example, you could have a version for production and a version for test and a version for development. We've only got one instance in this demo, so the instance number we can type is 00. Lastly, the only thing we need to enter here is the description. This can actually be any description, but let's type HDB in capitals. Once we've specified the system, we can then click on Next. The next step is to enter our database user credentials within our connection properties window. So for the username, let's go ahead and enter the user system. And for the password, let's enter the password, which is welcome with a capital W, lowercase elcome, and then the number 1. All we need to do then is click on Finish. So, how can we ensure that our connection is valid and correct? The simple way we can do this is by expanding the content folder on the left hand side in our navigator panel. So if I expand the the catalog folder, what we should see is 7 or 8 schemas. So we should see around 6 _sys schemas a sys schema, and a system schema. Essentially, these are databases or users. If you can see this list of databases, then this means we have correctly connected to our HANA server on our Linux machine from our SAP HANA Studio, which is on our Windows machine. In this video, we're going to be creating a schema within our SAP HANA server and running a command so we can grant the right privileges to a specific user in order that we can investigate data within any views that we create. So the first thing to do is to create that schema. So in your list of databases, again, we have 8 default schemas. However, we want to create a schema where we house our own content. So to do this, we go to our database, we select the HDB system HDB, and above that you will see a little blue icon with the SQL embossed in white lettering, and that is the SQL editor. So let's go ahead and select that SQL editor. Now the command to create the schema is very simple. It's create schema and then STS. So go ahead and type in create schema STS. And now what we need to do is we need to execute that command. To do this, on the right hand side we have this green circle with a white arrow pointing to the right, and that will execute any command. We can see below in the results window that the command was executed successfully, but how do we know it actually worked? Well, if I go to my catalog folder on the left hand side, right click and select refresh, we should see our schema STS, and if I expand that schema and expand the tables, we should see we have no content within that schema. So that's the schema successfully created. What we need to do now is run another command which will grant the system repository user access to the schema in order to be able to access any data or any objects within any of the content that we create later on in this demo. The command is very straightforward. We need to enter the following command, so we can just remove the existing script that we've got because we've already executed it. And we need to enter the following command. Grant space select space on schema with a space. We then need the name of the schema, which for us of course is STS. Add a space, add a space, and they then say underscore sys underscore repo, and add the command at the end after a space, which is with grant option. So just to review, the command is grant select on schema STS to underscore sys underscore repo with grant option. Again, all we need to do here is execute the command by again clicking on that green icon. And again, we can see below in the results window that grant statement was successfully created. So there you can see a simple example of how to create a schema in the SAP HANA Studio and how to execute a SQL statement to grant privileges on specific users. Now that we've executed those 2 commands, the create schema and the grant select commands, we don't really need the modeler anymore, so we can exit by clicking on the X on the top right hand side. If we're prompted to save any scripts, we don't have to save them, so just click no to all. And when you're prompted to exit SAP HANA Studio, of course, click on OK.